The chandeliers in the lobby of the Park Avenue Hotel cost more than most people earn in a lifetime, yet Li Ming sat beneath them feeling utterly invisible. Her Hermes scarf, her understated but unmistakably expensive jewelry, the confident posture she'd cultivated through decades of boardroom battles, none of it mattered now. She was just another face in the crowd, except she wasn't even that. She was a woman struggling with broken English, increasingly desperate. And completely alone in a city of 8 million people, Li Ming had built an empire from nothing. At 62, she controlled a manufacturing conglomerate that employed over 50,000 people across 3 continents. She'd negotiated deals worth hundreds of millions of dollars, stared down competitors who'd underestimated her, and earned respect in an industry dominated by men who'd initially dismissed her as a secretary. But none of that prepared her for this moment, standing at a concierge desk in Manhattan, trying to explain that her medication was missing, and watching the staff's eyes glaze over with impatience. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I don't understand what you're saying." The concierge's smile was professional but hollow, the kind that says, "You're wasting my time," in the politest way possible. Li Ming tried again, slower this time, her accent thickening with anxiety. "My medicine. Very important. In bag. Bag is lost." The concierge glanced at the line forming behind her. "You'll need to file a report with the airline." "Next, please." Li Ming felt heat rise to her cheeks. In Shanghai, in Beijing, in every city where her native tongue flowed freely, she commanded attention. Here, she was just an inconvenience. She stepped aside, pulling out her phone with trembling fingers. Her daughter was in Beijing, 14 hours ahead and probably asleep. Her assistant hadn't responded to messages. The medication she needed for her heart condition was somewhere in the labyrinth of lost luggage at JFK, and she had perhaps 2 days of pills left in her travel case. She tried the front desk next. A different face, same result. The manager she requested was unavailable. Could she wait? Of course she could wait. She'd crossed an ocean. What was another hour of sitting in a plush chair, watching people move past her like water around a stone? The waiting area offered a perfect view of the lobby's theater. She watched a young couple argue about dinner reservations, their raised voices attracting immediate attention from 2 staff members who rushed to accommodate them. She watched a businessman bark orders into his phone while a porter stood by with his luggage, waiting with a patience that suggested generous tips. She watched the world turn, and she was not part of it. By the 3rd hour, Li Ming had been shuffled to 4 different staff members. Each one smiled, nodded, promised to help, then passed her along like an unwanted package. The language barrier wasn't insurmountable. Her English, though imperfect, was functional. But something else was at play. She recognized it from her early days in business. That subtle dismissal that comes not from what you say but from how people decide whether you're worth hearing. The hotel restaurant refused her request for hot water to take her medication. "We only serve that with tea service." "Ma'am." The business center couldn't help her make an international call. "You'll need to use your cell phone." The spa receptionist couldn't direct her to a nearby pharmacy. "I'm not familiar with that area." As evening shadows lengthened across the marble floors, Li Ming felt something she hadn't experienced in decades: powerlessness. She'd forgotten what it felt like to be unimportant, to speak and not be heard, to need help and be denied. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd flown first class to New York. Her suite upstairs cost more per night than her first apartment in Shanghai cost for a year, and yet she might as well have been invisible. She found herself in a corridor near the service elevators, away from the polished perfection of the main lobby, trying to compose a message to her daughter that wouldn't cause alarm. The medication situation was becoming urgent. Her chest felt tight, whether from stress or her condition she couldn't tell. That's when she heard it. "Ni hai hao ma? Are you okay?" Li Ming's head snapped up. A man in a janitor's uniform stood a few feet away, mop in hand, concern etched on his weathered face. He was perhaps 70, with silver hair and eyes that held both wisdom and weariness. He repeated the question in Mandarin, his accent carrying the familiar tones of her homeland. The relief that flooded through her was so intense she almost wept. "You speak Chinese," she said, and the words tumbled out in her native tongue like water from a broken dam. "I've been trying to get help all day. My medication is lost. I have a heart condition. No one will listen. The janitor, his name tag read James Chen, set down his mop. Tell me everything, he said simply. And she did. In rapid Mandarin, she explained about the lost luggage, the medication, the pharmacy she needed to find, the calls she needed to make. James listened with complete attention, the kind of listening that had become so rare in her stratified world that she'd almost forgotten what it felt like. When she finished, he nodded. Wait here. He disappeared down the corridor, returning 15 minutes later with a piece of paper covered in his careful handwriting. There's a pharmacy 6 blocks from here. 24 hours. I wrote down your medication. You show them this. The pharmacist is Chinese, speaks Mandarin. Tell her James sent you. She'll help until your prescription can be transferred. How did you... Li Ming started. I called my daughter. She's a nurse. She helped me with the medical terms in English. He pulled out his phone, showing her a map he'd marked up. And here, I called the airline's Chinese language service line. Your bag is found. It will be delivered tomorrow morning. Li Ming stared at this man in a janitor's uniform who'd accomplished in 15 minutes what hours of pleading with the hotel's staff had failed to achieve. Why? She asked. Why are you helping me? James smiled, a sad, knowing expression. 40 years ago, I came to New York. Big dreams, no English, very scared. I was lost in Grand Central Station, and everyone walked past me. Everyone. Then a black woman. A cleaning lady. She stopped. She didn't speak Chinese, I didn't speak English, but she saw I needed help. She walked me to the right train, made sure I got on. I never forgot her kindness. He picked up his mop again. We spend our lives invisible, people like us. The ones who clean, who serve, who work behind the scenes. We know what it's like when no one sees you. So when I see someone who needs help, someone everyone else is walking past. I remember that cleaning lady. I'd try to be her. Li Ming felt tears slide down her cheeks. I run a company worth billions, she said quietly. I employ thousands. And you helped me when no one else would. Money doesn't buy kindness, James said gently. Sometimes the people with the least to give are the most generous with what they have. The next morning, Li Ming's medication arrived as promised, but she didn't check out immediately. Instead, she found her way to the hotel's administrative offices and requested a meeting with the general manager. When he finally appeared far more attentive than he'd been the day before when his staff claimed he was unavailable, she told him about James Chen, about the hours she'd spent being shuffled and dismissed, about the janitor who'd stopped to help. I want to know why a man paid minimum wage showed more professionalism and customer service than your entire staff. Combined, she said, her English suddenly precise and clear when fueled by purpose. And I want to know what you're going to do about it. The story would have ended there, a small victory, a point made. But Li Ming wasn't finished. She didn't just want James recognized, she wanted the lesson to spread. Through her foundation, she established a customer service training program built around James's simple philosophy: see people, all people, and help when you can. The program started in that hotel and expanded across the hospitality industry, emphasizing empathy and connection over script and procedure. James Chen retired 2 years later, but not before accepting a position as a consultant for Li Ming's initiative. I'm still a janitor at heart, he told her at the retirement party she insisted on throwing him. I just have a bigger floor to clean now. Li Ming kept in touch with him until his passing 5 years later. At his funeral, she met his daughter, the nurse who'd helped that evening, and learned that James had never told his family the full story of how he'd impacted a billionaire's life. He'd simply said he'd helped someone who needed it, the way that cleaning lady in Grand Central had helped him decades before. Standing by his casket, Li Ming thought about visibility and invisibility, about the power we hold when we choose to see each other as human beings, rather than roles or inconveniences. She thought about how the richest woman in a hotel lobby had been invisible while the janitor had been the only one truly present. She thought about kindness as currency, more valuable than anything in her bank accounts. The ripple effect of one moment of compassion, a cleaning lady in Grand Central, a janitor in a hotel corridor, had touched thousands of lives through the programs. Li Ming built in James's name. But more than that, it had taught her something she'd forgotten while building her empire. That dignity, respect, and human connection aren't luxuries distributed according to wealth or status. They're basic rights, and the measure of a society is found in how we treat those we could most easily ignore. In a city of 8 million people, on a day when no one else stopped, a janitor had seen her. And in being seen, Li Ming had learned to see others differently too. Sometimes salvation comes not from those with the most power to help, but from those with the most heart to care. That's the kind of wealth that truly matters.